Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for coming out. I know this is Sunday and you guys have families or whatnot, but certainly appreciate you and covering and giving our football team and our program and our university the exposure that you have. And kind of neat to see you guys after a couple of days of practice. In fact, today was our first day in shells after going 2 days of just helmets and shorts. What you see out there so far is obviously there's a cultural, change going on that involves a lot of energy, enthusiasm, just a lot of juice. And it's something that goes along and blends in well with teaching and coaching. We have a lot of staff continuity from the previous year. Our schemes, we have the opportunity to not only, expand on them and kind of elevate their efficiency, but we have a chance to better ourselves through familiarity, which is really important to our players. What you see is a lot of good plays, but not so many. There's still some bad plays out there as well, the typical early camp stuff. But what you see is a group of young men that have really taken to an off-season program, and it's showing up. It's showing up in the way we move, the way we bend, the way we run. We're faster. We're a little bit more explosive. We have better balance and body control, so we can now practice in pads and practice our drills full speed and not end up on the ground. Okay, and that's really important. Last year, we felt that we had to improve the way that we practiced, still being able to do the things that we need to do without ending up on the ground and getting guys hurt. We bend better. We come out of our hips better. We're certainly a little bit more physical up front at the line of scrimmage. And overall, just very solid first couple of days. I think the best part about it is leaders are leading, culture is getting stronger, and we're accomplishing what we need to do in an efficient manner. We're obviously a high-tempo offense, so the tempo of practice has been really, really strong. And I'll tell you, it's hard for the freshmen because they're going through a regimen that they've never, ever experienced before. But they've done a pretty good job keeping up. And as of right now, all freshmen are in play to have playing time. So just a little bit of a snapshot of where we are so far after the first couple of days. So with that being said, open to questions.
Coach, like you said, you've had a couple days to look at the guys now.
Yes, sir.
And you had a bunch of Christmas presents to unwrap, newcomers. Any of them standing out you've had early time to look at that you're going to say, hey, these guys going to help right away?
Well, you hope Christmas just continues going all the time, right? But no, I think you said it best. You always want to see what the new guys can do. You want to see what your guys can do better, right? Because one thing I would like to emphasize is during camp, we do not try to have the offense out-execute the defense or the vice versa. We're looking to find out who can play. The basic fundamentals of blocking, tackling, throwing, catching, right, playing with leverage, all that stuff. And what you see right now, all 5, 6 offensive linemen are in play, okay? Travis Dye, certainly in play right away. At the wide receiver position, being thin like we are, you would think naturally, you'd have a chance to play, but they think they've made a case for themselves, because they are playing really well, right? And you flop over the defensive side of the ball, and Adrian Jackson right away, stands out as a guy. MJ did a really nice job. Andrew Faliu has stood out as well. Explosive guy, can get to the quarterback at close ground. Steve Stevens has been out here. Hockey has been here since, the January period, but so you kind of lose track and sight of him. But him and Verone McKinley have had really nice starts to practice. And Javon Holland really stands out as a guy as well that's going to be able to help us. So Spencer Webb has definitely made his plays. Tyler Shuck continues to improve. So overall, I don't think we're way too early in camp to make any decisions. Our depth chart is not really a depth chart. We refer to it as an organizational chart so that we can move those magnets all over the place, right, on a day-by-day basis.
Mario, just kind of following up on right here.
There you are. Okay.
Just kind of following up on the freshman offensive lineman. I mean, do you recall your first camp as a freshman, trying to play that position, and what does that say about them?
That's a horrible memory, man. I'm having a good day. You want to bring that up right now.
But
yeah,
what does that say about them that they could
Let me
be
explain
ready
that
right
day
away?
for you, all right? Being 230 pounds, which I have no business playing offensive line, and you go to the University of Miami, and it's Cortez Kennedy, and it's Russell Maryland, and it's Danny Stubbs, and those types. So I was 6'7", and they shrunk me down to 6'4" by blunting me on a daily basis over there in practice. So it is 100 miles an hour, and you want them to get it right away, and it's not going to happen. It's not. And you have to realize as a coach, you have to have patience to understand this is a whole different environment, right? This is a whole different regimen, a set of demands, and they have great attitudes. I mean, their head is spinning, literally. It's like I've seen eyes go backwards and forward about 15 times. but they're doing a heck of a job because the upperclassmen have done a great job being serving as leaders for them. So, but it's the best thing we can do. Keep teaching, keep going. The way practice is set up nowadays, there are no more two-a-days. Before we had, what, like 5-a-days, right, back in the day. Now you can't even have a two-a-day. So we spend a lot of time meeting and bringing them along.
Yeah, Coach, you talk a lot about power on the line of scrimmage. You want to be a line of scrimmage football team, but you also just said, hey, we're an up-tempo team. How do you sort of mesh those two things together, and is that maybe the next phase of college football we'll see? And on that note, 5 years ago, this was a strictly up-tempo. They just blew people away with their up-tempo.
Yes, sir.
What we see this year out of this team?
We know everybody's gone up-tempo, and at the last place I was at, we had to learn a lesson the hard way. Right? People were going up-tempo on us, and all of a sudden we were getting outscored. Okay, so we spent the next offseason actually visiting, the university that did us, pretty badly in the bowl game, and combining the elements of up-tempo offense with the physicality at the line of scrimmage. Okay, so, it's almost like your increments, right? Your time in between plays is shorter, so you have to train your guys to be just as explosive play 1 through play 90 without giving up a single amount of finish, toughness, and physicality. So it is very easily combined. We have been doing it. The principles of what we play with up front are NFL principles, right? NFL rules, right? The way we ID stuff, the way we block it, our man blocks, double teams, pin and pull schemes, whatever it may be. So that's what we have been working on since the springtime and, our whole installation throughout the entire summer and now the fall. So it's a good combination. You have a quarterback that knows how to manage it, can also flip our stuff to the RPO game that has really been effective in practice. So that's what you can expect from us, being explosive, being fast, but being physical at the line of scrimmage. We do not want to take away from our tempo. It's been a valuable asset to Oregon for a long, long time.
We always talk about newcomers, but what about the guys that redshirted last year? What have you kind of seen, or what stood out with that group? Seems like a couple of them could be in line for serious kinds of roles.
There are, and I know there's a new redshirt rule that will provide that year, even while you play, but redshirt years are invaluable. We always say football's the developmental game, and I think it really shows right away in a guy like C.J. Verdell, right? And we got a glimpse of him in the springtime, of what his body has become, about how much more physical he is. He's more explosive. He runs his feet through contact now. When he got here as a freshman, you could kind of, trip tackle him or kind of knock him over, and now, I mean, you better put your hat on him. You better wrap him up pretty good and rally to the football, because he's going to be a tough guy to bring down. So he's one of many examples of other guys that have really shown up, but invaluable because of the combination of the time and the work with your strength conditioning program.
Mario, you talked about teaching and coaching. How much do you enjoy this process and helping the young guys get so much better?
Yeah, this is the best. It really is. And really, I never coached high school football. I wish I did. I wish I would have, because over there you have to, in high school, you got to teach these guys how to get in the stance, right? You have to teach them what behind the line means when you're saying behind the line on a sprint. That's why we have the ultimate respect for high school coaches. Here they come in with a good base and a foundation. And, but it's the most rewarding part of the job. It's really what we do. The word coach really should be teacher. I'll take an example like a guy like Penei Sewell. He's almost an autocorrect guy. Like, you kind of put some information on him and in him, and you do it in sound bites, You don't want to have him out there in the hot sun. Hey, by the way, you want to do blah, 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 blah. No, sound bites. Foot in the ground, hat inside, and let him take care of the rest. And then when you see the result of that block or that particular play, no, it is the absolute best and most rewarding part about the profession.
Coach, you've talked a lot about the strength program, how that's the secret sauce to the program.
The secret sauce.
How can you dive a little bit deeper into that, and how your guys are better prepared this year to play the sport?
I think so. I mean, that's I've made it no secret, and it's just a belief, is what having experienced that at the last place I was at. You just saw people change, their bodies change, their physicality changed, their demeanor changed, their confidence was completely different, and it allowed that to just permeate the locker room. So besides the physical, gains that you make, everything from a DNA standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, mentality and confidence standpoint, it makes you different. You got to bend your knees, right? You got to come out of your hips in football. You got to play with leverage. You got to be able to strike. You got to be able to finish. You got to be able to play off blocks. You got to be able to strike defenders. All of those things can be bettered, okay, can be improved, excuse me, in the offseason with the right strength and conditioning program. And I think every single player will tell you they're seeing the results right now. And they're seeing the results when they're playing tired, when it's play number 8, 9, 10 of a drive, and both sides have to compete against each other. So we are by the way, on a side note, we are lifting extremely hard during camp. We are. A little bit of a different mindset than other places we have been at, where it's kind of, you lift every 4 or 5 days. We're not. We're attacking that thing where we don't let 3 days go by without us having a really good lift session.
Mario, a lot of coaches have different philosophies on whether or not they want their freshmen to speak with the media and kind of, be put in that situation. You obviously don't have a problem with this. What's kind of your philosophy and thought process behind that?
I just don't think you put a timetable on when someone's ready. It kind of be the same thing like saying, well, we don't play freshmen because they're not going to be ready. Some guys do a really good job and they're mature, and they're really good representatives and ambassadors of the program. So why not, right? It's we don't have I guess I never got the handbook on that. Maybe you could help me out and get me one. I think the guys do a great job with you. I think you'll enjoy them. They're certainly real awesome young men, and they're learning a lot now. They're learning a lot. I'm sure they're wondering why their break is cut short and they got to meet with the media, but I think their families will enjoy it, and I think it's important that the rest of the country understands and realize that we don't discriminate. You could be a freshman, you could be a fifth-year 5-star guy, you could be a guy that just came into the door as a walk-on. Here it's about earning, your possibilities and your opportunities, and they have earned the opportunity to speak to the media.
Yeah, Coach, you just came off quote-unquote off-season. I'm wondering if you could give us a glimpse personally of what your schedule is like in the off-season now, the next 5 or 6 months, how much sleep, or what are you ever going to get any sleep?
Off-season. We got to redefine the calendar and the use of that word, or just kind of check with Webster and maybe redefine it. I know there is none anymore, and that's okay. I mean, we're lucky. We get to do something that we love to do, so it just kind of rolls into, the next phase. The players in their offseason, how they're lifting and running everything else and then taking care of business. Coaches can't actually work with them on the field. We're allowed to meet with them for 2 hours, maximum a week. For myself, it's pretty early, but I don't want to get into it because it kind of sounds like, hey, I'm the hardest worker and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that. Sleep is minimal, like Navy SEAL type stuff. What's that? There's no doubt. There's no doubt. My entire life, I've always gone to see my mom in Miami. It's what you do, right? You're born a Cuban kid, you go see your mom, right? She tells you how badly you're speaking Spanish and corrects you in the way you're getting dressed. And this year, we flew our entire family out here to Oregon, and we had a great time. We had it the first time in all these years, and really wanted to take a deeper dive into the state, getting to know the places and the people, and we caught 31 rainbow trout. We all had licenses, so I want to make sure that's clear with the media, okay? So it was really good. So it was a good 4 hours of vacation.
Mario, a lot of times with a new head coach, that first season will be kind of a transition period or a grace period. Do you feel like with the team you have coming back and the continuity with your staff that maybe that timetable is a little bit accelerated for you?
I think it helps. I think that if you approach it and think that you're going to have more lumps than you deserve, you're probably going to get them, right? Self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think of it this way. We are preparing at a really rapid rate. We have a significant amount of staff continuity. Guys are doing a good job, a real good job working together. So, the way we look at it, the way I look at it, it's that we don't expect to have, I guess, what they refer to as first-year glitches or whatnot. We do understand each other better. Are there going to be lumps and painful steps that come with some? That comes with football, but the message to our staff and what we kind of live by is like, look, let's not worry about that stuff. Let's not create them. If they're there, let's solve them. Put our heads together, but definitely don't shy away from them. It is what it is. Address them and go forward.
Last year, your offensive lineman played like 96% of the snaps along the line. Is that going to be pretty typical for you, or was that just kind of like a one-year deal of lack of depth that you didn't feel comfortable with?
A little bit of both. Always, I'm a big fan. Whatever the head coach wants, that's what you do. Never, ever dispute that, never argue that. That was something that our head coach wanted, and that's something that we abided by. Now, philosophically here, myself, I like to treat the offensive line position like any other position. You got to play guys. You just mentioned it, 96% of the plays, the actual number count was 980 plus snaps. That's a lot of plays, right? You know, that's like the old Ford in the garage, right, with a whole bunch of miles on it. So you don't want to put too many more miles on that, right, when you have other ones that can do it. We have a lot of good offensive linemen, and playing time is going to be divvied out as they deserve it. We do feel that, you know, that line that you draw and who's above the line that can help you win a championship, we do feel we're going to have 8, 9, 10 guys that can help us win a championship up front, and we're going to play them all.
Coach, you talked a lot in spring ball about discipline and how that momentum kind of carried over. The other day you said that guys were showing up to meetings 15, 10 minutes early. Is that something you've seen in the first couple of days of fall camp, and are you pleased with the discipline that they've been able to carry over? Absolutely.
You know, we have officials out there for practice. We had 1 holding today, and we had 2 illegal procedures, and that's 3 penalties too much. We want to limit penalties to once every 30 plays at a maximum, and they have to be ones that are actually forced. Unforced penalties we don't want. You see the energy and enthusiasm, and we explain to our guys and make it very clear that your mental intensity is going to be reflected by how you show up and when you show up, right? Let's call it what it is. If a guy ever shows up late, and we could talk about how the cell phone is not working or we lost power, and not buying that. Not buying that at all, okay? I'm sure we've all had right responsibilities for the past, whoever's been around long enough, like I have, 30-plus years, and you've never been late to any of those things. Well, we had the exact same rules and principles. The Senior Leadership Council and some of the other guys in the Leadership Council, they're completely driving that entire objective and that directive. And so we're seeing it. And you know what we're telling the guys, too, so we're all on the same page? We're making sure that they understand clearly that we have to be able to push them to help them get to a place where they're having a breakthrough. Sometimes people say, well, we're going to make you or break you in camp. We don't, that's not what we're doing here. We're going to make you, and we're going to break bad habits to help you go forward. And I think once a player allows you to push him past a certain limit and his limitations, I think now you have yourself the type of relationship you want between a coach and a player.
Middle, right towards the back, Andrew. Right, Mike's right behind you, Andrew.
You'd mentioned in the secondary on Thursday that you have not as many bodies as you'd like, but you like the talent there. 2 guys in particular, Diamador and Thomas. What have you seen from the end of last season when they finished pretty well to now where they seem like they're really entrenched at those starting spots?
Sure. Thomas, you could see a second-year player in action is what you see. Much more savvy, body has developed, more explosive, more of a leader, a guy that can now help correct the other guys and can self-correct himself as well. Diamador has had a really big spring. Diamador is a really physical guy. I like to get him involved in every kind of special teams as well. His skill set has always been a really good skill set, but he had to work out the kinks of getting out there and playing against Power 5, wide receivers. He's done so. We trust him in every single call that we have, zone, man, whatnot, combination coverages. Both those guys have been really, really good so far in camp.
Coach, Brian Addison, a great example of a guy that you're trying to figure out which side of the ball you most use him on soonest. Any other guys in that category kind of trying to figure out which side of the ball, what position exactly they're going to play in to start this season?
No, we will. We'll take guys like, heck, we may take Jalen Red and see if he could go cover somebody and be part of a nickel package. We'll take one of those jumbo defensive linemen and see if he could, provide an extra blocker on a particular scheme. I mean, we'll do it all. We'll take a 6th or 7th offensive lineman and line him up and say, hey, let's see if this guy could serve as a better blocker, certainly not a pass catcher, as a tight end. So, our personnel groupings, I think what you're going to see as the season goes on, we're pretty multiple on offense. And you're going to see that if you're a tight end, you have to wear the same hat, meaning you have to know the same position as every wide receiver or tailback on the team. Because our formations are all concept-oriented. They're all overlaps. So blank formation means that these guys go to these spots regardless of what personnel group that we're in. That's going to help us a bunch in keeping teams off balance. So, and no one is off limits on either side of the ball to putting them on, to having some guys switch over and play on the other side.
Coach, can you just talk a little bit about your game day, what you will be handling on the sidelines, and kind of how that will unfold?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always going to be involved with the offensive side of the ball. Marcus Arroyo is our play caller, okay? Coach Mastro is serving as our run game coordinator, but I'm heavily, heavily, heavily involved in the run game plan as well. I'm always on the headsets with both sides because if there is a call that I feel it really isn't the best call for us at the time, then I'll do whatever necessary to make sure we get the best call available. And I like to let the coordinators call their game. We do meet throughout the course of the week. We game plan every phase of the game, and even up till the morning of game day, we meet to review any and all situations, and the craziest situations imaginable. I mean, from where the sun is setting at, where it's pointing at 3:30, if we're getting the ball in the second quarter and they're punting, to the other side, or whether we are playing in overtime, where's the student section, which way do we want to go? Do we want the ball first? We want to be on defense first? We review every single possible situation, so we expect it to be pretty smooth on game day.
One of the things we've seen over the last couple of seasons here is the importance of that backup QB role.
Yeah.
What is that competition shaping up to be right now, and what are your expectations for that role?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you bring that up. And, I mentioned it a couple of times throughout the past, I would say, month and in the springtime. Those guys have been impressive. They both have been impressive. They both run the offense extremely well. We chart what they do in every drill, 1-on-1, 7-on-7, blitz drill, team run, play action, our second and third down period, our pure third down period, 2-minute, red zone, you name it, we chart it all. Those guys have really pushed up their completion percentage another 8-10%. They've been really efficient with the ball. They've been really good decision makers. I think another year again with Coach Marcus Arroyo has made a tremendous difference. Marcus has done a great job with those guys. And today was a great example. I mean, today was empty protections, bringing guys from all over the place, multiple coverage looks, and that receiving core, those tight ends and Justin and Braxton and Tyler, they were on point now. They made some big plays. Took some in the chin too now. Defense made some really good plays also, but you see our players, you see development. I mean, you see guys, instead of eating the ball or making a poor decision and spitting out in the wrong area, you see guys making plays or at least making the right decision and trying to put the ball in the right spot. And that's growth, from the quarterbacks, the type of growth that you want to see during camp.
Mario, I was curious about Troy Dye. Obviously, as a true freshman, he was very productive on a bad defense last year, moved him inside, productive again on an improving defense. What are you expecting from him now that he's so experienced?
A really, really great play on a really great defense. The next natural step, right? I think that's what he expects of himself. I think that's what his teammates expect of him, and I think we're going to see that as well. Troy's not satisfied with the things of the past. He kind of lives where his feet are right now. He's been really good about pushing and encouraging his teammates and being a good team leader, mentor to the young guys. He will take that next step. We demand it of him, he demands it of himself, and our football program, our team needs that to happen. So let's see it happen. Let's make it happen.
Coach, I wanted to ask a little bit. Last year, penalties were a problem. You mentioned it earlier. What do you do to address that? And when you back and looked at the film last year, did you find that most of those penalties were penalties of enthusiasm or penalties of maybe a brain cramp or something along those lines?
I like those brain cramps. You have a little bit of both, and I think you're exactly on point 100%. You have to face that dead on and realize, you know what, from a coaching standpoint, number one, that's what it falls on, right? The coach is number one, because we're either teaching it or we're allowing it to happen, and unfortunately, we allowed it to happen, all right? Number two is the educational aspect. What are you doing that is not legal within the rules of the game? A lot of it has to do with understanding exactly what to do on a play, how to do it, and why we're doing it that way. For example, and this is the one that probably showed up, I would say 35%, 40% of the time. If you're an offensive blocker and you've got to get a certain hat position, right? I got to get my hat outside on you on that defensive end because that ball's going to go outside, but I get my hat on the inside. Well, the back's still thinking he's going to spit the ball outside. Well, when that defensive end breaks for the ball, he's already outside, he leaves, I try to tug him, and there goes the flag. All caused because I kind of understood I had to block the guy, but now how I had to block him and why I had to block him in that way. And when you understand that, and when you understand what everybody around you is doing, you eliminate half of your penalties. The second part is we have to make sure, like in practice, if you come to practice, you'll see that we have officials out there just about every single day. They also come to our meetings and they watch film so we could be really specific and aggressive by how we approach and attack our penalty situation. I think when you add those things, I think when you add a strength and conditioning program that demands being early, that demands doing things exactly the right way, along with a coach that does the same thing, I just think the mentality and the culture that comes with that helps you improve your mindset towards playing the game of football. What's the goal, right? The goal is to have success on each and every play the next one without hurting the football team, right? Can't be selfish, can't be foolish, and we're learning that. We had to learn it the hard way last year, and the goal is to make sure we don't learn that lesson again.
Your first press conference of spring football, you talked about the women's basketball team. The end of spring press conference, you talked about the softball team. And then this Thursday, you talked about all the other coaches that have been hired here. Where does that come from? You've been seen promoting a lot of other teams, and your players are constantly seen at other sporting events. Where does that come from of just supporting everybody else? And I mean, your job's super high demanding already, and it seems like you're bought in on everybody else's programs too.
I have no hobbies. I got the most boring person on earth, man. You know, I got nothing to do. On a side note, it's just that you either are family or you're not. And the DNA, and this is set by our leader, you know, Rob Mullins, is that it's the DNA of everyone in the athletic department. You know, we are here together as a family. We are here to support each other. We all know the challenges of being a Power 5 program in every aspect, and they're just, and let's call it what it is. If you love sports and you love being a competitor, you watch the way our women's teams were playing, was watching basketball. I take my sons to watch those basketball games all the time, both men's and women. I'm a terrible basketball player. I can't make a layup, but just the way they coach and they teach and they push and the way they execute, they demand from each other. I learn a lot from that. I do. I learn a lot from our other coaches. I always try to take a deeper dive into them and their life and what they're about, because that helps us become tighter as an athletic department, thus strengthening and galvanizing, you know, everyone here as the Oregon family.
Coach, I think you added 3 grad transfers. I'm curious, and kind of what's the benefit of adding those players, and maybe speak to all 3 of them.
Yeah, well, we felt they could upgrade our talent and our roster, and we did so. Dallas Warmack, interior offensive lineman. Obviously, I knew him from before at Alabama. Really good football player, powerful, right? A guy that could move the line of scrimmage, good balance, good pass protector. We thought he could help us. Kano Dillon, 270-pound tight end that could run, really soft hands. A bunch of our guys knew him from his time at South Florida. Really, really talented guy that could help us do a lot of things, stretch the field and control the line of scrimmage. Tabari Hines, 50-plus catches in the ACC. Certainly a guy that's an experienced route runner, a mature, polished guy. I know he's a little bit dinged up, so we haven't seen him in live action yet, but those are 3 guys at 3 positions that are always going to need help. So any opportunity that we have to upgrade the roster without ever compromising character, okay, drive, determination, DNA, any chance we get to upgrade it, we're going to do so, because either they're making, you know, significant plays for your offense and defense, or they're upping the competition, hence making everybody better, right? Competition's a beautiful thing now. That's the best part about camp right now. Why are guys getting better and pushing? Because there's a guy right behind them and a guy right behind him, and that's the way it should be, right? Stack them up, develop them, don't put them aside on the cupboard, develop them, work with them every single day, and create that type of environment, and so far so good with those guys.
Hi, Coach.
Hello.
As you probably know, Justin Herbert was pretty shy when he arrived on campus a year or 2 ago, and now that
Did you see his haircut?
Yeah.
Back then?
Oh, I have not. No.
Okay. Well, back then, I mean, I would have been shy too with that
Oh,
haircut.
back then, yes. So now that you've had a good year with him, how would you say he's grown both emotionally and physically?
It's exponentially growing. You know, it hasn't stopped, and he's gained more confidence about everything he does. He's obviously a tremendous student. He's well-liked by everyone in the building, the community, the state. He's such a, besides being a hard worker, he's such a driven individual. That's the best way to explain it. He's driven to get better. He's never satisfied. He's very hard on himself. We actually have to kind of pull him off of himself sometimes, because he's very hard on himself, very critical of himself, and we try to make sure that we coach him harder than any other player. And why is that? Because our best players have to be able to receive our hardest coaching, to be our hardest workers and our best performers. He is, again, it's, you know, he's young. He's young, but yet the maturity that we've seen, you know, over the past year from him and what we expect during this year has been incredible. It's exactly what you want your own son to go through in his process as he matures to be an awesome young man. We're seeing that in Justin. So the value of that is well beyond football and leadership. This guy, it transcends all that stuff.
Just following up on that Justin Herbert question, you mentioned that Justin has gone from quarterback to a field general. Can you talk a little bit more about that, specifically on the football side of things?
Yep, he can fix you. He can fix you when things aren't, supposed to be aren't kind of going the way that they are. What I mean by that, if you have a particular play called into a defense where you're going to suffer a negative play, or there's going to be penetration due to a lack of a blocker, an imperfect scheme, a rotation of the coverage that now predicates us, either call a timeout or whatnot. Justin understands both the run, the pass game, particularly the protections, to get us in the right play when we have to. Part of it is teaching and alerting certain plays, and other ones are just he understands it, he gets it. And when a quarterback could do that, it becomes another level of football for your offense, and it lends to you being able to give him more and more and more and put more on his plate to be able to expand and open up the playbook. And right now the playbook, with Justin and the rest of the offense, the playbook is wide open.